in person.
We have enough?
Yep, we need 6. So, and we have 6.
Oh, it's too bad.
We will call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Wellington American Rescue Plan Act Commission of Wellington, and it is November 21st, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. The first item on the agenda is roll call, which we just went through the list of who's here. We have Robin, Mike, Stu, Erica, and me, which makes 6 people, which is quorum because our total commission is 10 people. We are missing Donna, Troy, Jenny, and Samantha, and Tom Smith has resigned. So we used to have 11, now we have 10. So we are okay to proceed. The first item is approval of minutes. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve them?
I move to approve the minutes of November 7th as presented.
Any second?
All seconds.
Okay. Any discussion about the minutes? All right. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain?
I will abstain. I wasn't there.
Okay. 2 abstentions so that passes. All right, correspondence. I just included in the packet the resignation letter from Tom Smith. He had sent it on the day of our last meeting, but so I didn't have it in the packet last time. So just so you can all see. And yeah, that was pretty much it. Present to speak. Joan, which you want to say?
I'm Joan Taraskowitz, 15 Lister Road. I'm here for my job on the board of directors for the library. We have a question for you. Our number 39, the first proposal, has been up for hearing since July 1st. And we've not had a hearing yet. And so we would respectfully request that it be scheduled now.
That's on our plan
This
today.
has been going on for quite a while, and we need this. Unfortunately, if this had been passed on the July 11th hearings, by now the work would be started and hopefully some of it completed. And all of the work is protecting a town building. This isn't an add-on. This is something that needs to be done in order to ensure that this building doesn't slide downhill any more than what has already happened. I'm finding it a little difficult to believe that this building was not inspected on a regular basis by the town when the rest of the buildings are inspected to make sure that everything is okay. But that evidently hasn't happened, and who knows who's responsible? That's going way back in history. But now things have gotten to the point where we're going to begin to have some real issues with that little, I don't know what you call it, little almost porch on the side of the children's end. That's crumbling. The concrete in that, the mortar in there is crumbling because it is on the north side and doesn't get thoroughly dried out. We're having a problem with the back envelope of the building where that last skimming coat is coming off, and Ralph is afraid that the water is going to get into the foundation, and then we're going to have a serious issue and a huge expense. So as we look through all of the items that have already been passed, I don't have any problem with any of them. They're needed, but they are not protecting the town other than maybe repairing the track. You put the track in, you've got to keep it repaired. I don't know why it wasn't in the recreation budget to do that. And you have repaving the playground. That's important too. Of course, that should come out of a school budget. If we follow the same logic that was used earlier this month in the last week, you just simply can't budget for everything. You can't, and not run up the tax rolls like crazy. So I understand that. So anyways, we're requesting that this get done in a hurry. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to do many of the repairs because we needed to do them in warm weather. And this wasn't passed in a timely fashion. In fact, if you look through the record here, it looks like this is being jerked around. It doesn't look like anybody has got a straight line with it. Now, that's the way it's perceived. That doesn't mean that's the way you meant it. But when I look through all of these, I see it's mentioned here, it's mentioned there, it's mentioned there. A few details here, no details there, and I feel like I'm putting together a jigsaw puzzle at the moment. So I just worry about that. I don't know if any other groups have had that problem too, trying to figure out where things are. So anyways, we look forward to hearing to you, hopefully right after the holidays as to when the hearing date's going to be, okay? And thank you.
Yeah, so Joan, just so you know, so number 39 came in on the day that we had that public hearing, so we couldn't hear it at the public hearing that night. And we have not had a public hearing since then. So we
haven't had any public hearings since July.
We didn't
no,
have funding, Joan, until October.
yeah.
Well,
that we
I'm
couldn't
getting
do a
these
public
things
hearing for
where
funds we didn't
something
have.
was approved on such and such a
It was
date.
approved to go to public hearing, but we haven't had that public hearing yet. There's gonna
You
be
have
like
a
10.
list of what, 40 things to go to public?
No,
hearing?
some of them, the things that came in January, February, March, April, May, we had 2 or 3 public hearings early on. Those things were either funded or not.
Yeah,
Some things were turned down. Some things were partially funded. Now we were waiting for the second tranche of funding to come to the town. We couldn't approve anything all summer. We haven't had a public hearing because it costs us money to have a public hearing. So we were waiting until we had enough things to make it worthwhile, which is what we're going to be calling tonight. But there's going to be several things, including number 39.
you are loaded with it. You're gonna have to bring in your sleeping bags and breakfast.
Well,
to
some of
get
this,
through
some of
them.
it, if you look at our
The
agenda,
first 38 items, Joan, went to public hearing.
Okay, the
and
first 38.
The first 38 had already
Okay,
gone. Yours came
good.
in at the date.
Good.
We were having the public hearing, so it couldn't go through that process. And then we
Okay.
did not have a second tranche of funding, so we did not hold a public hearing for funds we did not have access to.
Okay,
And then we
good.
made the decision to wait to put things together, to have one public hearing for the remaining dollars available. So I'll use your terms, no one has been jerked around. This wasn't sent to a public hearing because we hadn't discussed having one yet.
Okay, because we really, if you had to listen to all of them, I'd be like, oh my goodness, you are.
We've already listened
You've
to all
got
of
a
them.
really,
yeah, we already listened to all of it and
Every
made
single one of
decisions
them.
on most of them.
yeah,
It's just that there are several that, like, if you look at our agenda on updates on previously held requests, all of those items are things that have been heard by our commission and been slated to
Mhm.
go to public hearing.
Mhm.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those that'll be on the public hearing agenda.
okay.
Except for ARPA 40 is the only one that we have not made a decision to move
No,
it ahead because we were looking for more information on
Yeah,
that
I've
one.
heard that.
Mhm.
I'm
So,
not under the impression you need more information here. I'm under the impression that we have to go back
Right.
and look at the priority list. That's that's a personal opinion. It's not a board opinion.
Well, it was to get the gutters cleaned, to know if that project if all of that project even needs to happen.
Well,
So-
you know, we've had 2 engineers go through it. I mean, I'm not sure what else we can do. I'm not sure.
Well, the
that
request
town
that-
Building inspector has been out there. I know it has been requested, but I'm not sure where that stands, so I can't tell you that.
And most of us, I think, did the walkthrough at the library a month or 2 ago.
Yes,
If you're looking
for CIP, there is a walkthrough.
Can we talk about this discussion and get to that
Yes,
item?
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, some other
so when
ones
when we get there, we'll talk about, we just have to get through all of this stuff. We get updates on everything that's already been funded now, so,
Okay, good.
yeah.
Well, thank you. I have a
okay.
doctor's appointment, so I'm kind of running in and out today.
No,
But I appreciate your time and I
Yeah.
appreciate your paying attention to this. We have found it a little bit difficult, really trying to assess what's needed at the library,
Yeah,
where we are.
well, I'm glad the process has started. We gotta start somewhere, and I'm glad the process has started.
Well, I think just protecting the building is number one in my mind.
Mhm.
Okay, that protects the town.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, is there anyone online who had something pleasant to speak? No? Okay. All right, new business. I didn't have anything under there. The only thing that I don't know if we need to have an agenda item about, but we do need to fill the empty seat created by Tom Smith, and I don't know if you have
So
any ideas about that.
I reached out to, I happened to be on the phone with Chief more about another fire department situation, and that seat that Tom fills is representing,
The Wellington
the
Public
Wellington-
Health Community.
Yes.
I'm looking at
and
it right now.
so the two chiefs had kind of come together and brought forth that name to the Board of Selectmen. So when I spoke to him on, I'm sorry, one day last week, he was going to be speaking with Chief Snyder and hope that they would be bringing us
Mhm.
something forward.
Okay,
And I just haven't heard back yet.
okay,
Yeah,
And-
they have a meeting tonight.
all right, well, that'll go to the Board of Selectmen and then.
Yeah.
Then we'll have some else. All right, unfinished business is just the updates on the previously funded requests. And all I included on the agenda is what the latest that we had heard at the last meeting. So I don't know.
Can I offer a small update about, well, I guess it's not. It's an unfunded, oh, sorry, no, we'll get to it, it's item C under B, C. Not one of these.
So the selectmen awarded the generator project.
Correct.
Do you think, is that gonna be a fast thing or a slow thing?
So no, I don't believe so. I believe Troy. I want to say that one, he was thinking March, it may not be till March. So
Mhm.
we've moved forward with ordering items, but it's a matter of supply
Okay,
issue. So I don't believe the generator will be able to be installed before winter really hits.
Okay.
We're hoping something miraculous will happen, but there is a lag time. on many of these items.
and does that 47,677 that it was awarded for, is that,
We
is
believe
that,
we believe it'll be under budget.
yeah, so that
Yes.
includes installation and everything?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
Great.
so we hope to come in under the 60, and that will be it. So
okay.
keep our fingers crossed that there aren't any additional expenses.
I was,
And we'll come in under budget on the storage box for evictions.
no,
So
okay.
we approved a vendor at that meeting under slightly under budget, so not a ton of money, but still a saving.
I was hoping Jenny would be here because I heard that there is some ARPA money that's gonna be allocated to senior centers specifically, that's coming down the pipe, and that all, there's like $10 million the state has that they're giving out to all 169 towns. And I don't know how much Wellington's getting, but it sounded like we were getting something.
I
And-
haven't heard that time.
But it's the kind of thing that you have to apply with projects for. It's not like they just send you the money, like we got we'd have to say, like, we want to spend it on whatever.
But
Yeah.
specifically for the senior center,
Mhm.
do you know who was administering that?
It's the state. I don't know, and I don't know what it's called. I meant to Google it and figure it out or ask somebody, but I was gonna ask Jenny. So,
Yeah, it's Thanksgiving program is happening this week, so
Oh,
it's a tough
yeah.
time. So I'll follow up with her and see
Okay.
what we can get, and if there are some of these things that we can work to redirect there, and then
Mhm.
maybe open up some ARPA
Yeah,
funding
that
of our own.
or maybe the senior center coordinator position.
Yeah,
I know we have a couple other things on here, but
The stove for the
The
senior
stove,
center.
yeah.
yeah.
If we can redirect it, I know Ed had a small amount, although I believe he started working on the technology upgrades.
Mhm.
But if we can redirect some of those and utilize funds
Yeah.
another way, I'll keep you posted.
And even the volunteer thing that the seniors, I forgot what it's called. But that might be, I don't know if it's like for infrastructure or what, so that's, the devils are in the details on these
Yeah.
things, but And then what else is, oh, and I was just gonna ask about the fuel bank too, how that's going. It's a 25,000, looks like it's gonna be all used up, or,
So I don't know if she has a sense of where it will go. I can ask, check with Kelsey. We just put in several items on Friday to be processed. So Kelsey had in her notes that it was $5,000 a year. And so I didn't recall that, neither did Donna. I went back through the minutes. I think she was getting information from the tracker, and I believe it's because we said we'll make $5,000 available now because we didn't have the rest of the funds.
oh,
And
yeah.
then the tracker hadn't been updated. So
Mhm.
she was hesitant to put forward any more funds last week, thinking we were getting close to that.
Oh, I see.
And until we discovered that on Friday, so we put them through. So we're not anywhere near the 25,000, but I will tell you with oil at the price it is,
Mhm.
you're gonna
Yeah.
burn through that
That's what I was thinking.
pretty quick. So, and I know Jenny had several asks for assistance last week.
Mhm.
So, and I had some questions for her that we'll take offline because I don't want to get into the hows and the whys of how it was being used, but kind of making sure we were utilizing it for the right purpose.
Mhm. Okay.
Downstairs, outside. So we'll follow up on that. And the senior center coordinator, we had second interviews last week. Unfortunately, one of our callbacks was ill, so we're doing it remotely
Yeah.
this week to kind of accommodate for all the sickness that's going around. So we hope to be making a decision. I'm hoping by end of this week, if not beginning of next week.
Okay. All right, well, that's.
A light at the end of that tunnel.
And so, yeah, and I asked Donna when I sent out the agenda if any were to be closed, but I don't think so, not this time. So, so updates on the previously heard requests. ARPA 39, I think we did decide that that one would go to public hearing back in July, but it's not how it's worded in the.
Because I don't think we moved, and here's my recollection. I did go back through the minutes, Christina, but we didn't have a second tranche of funds, so we put everything on hold.
Right.
So we purposely didn't decide to take it any further and have too much discussion on it because we didn't have funds. And then when the funds came in, we heard from the new ones, we didn't really revisit this one. So unless, I have to refresh myself from last week's, last meeting's minutes. If we didn't move it then we haven't moved it, but I want to speak specifically to Joan's comments. I think it's irresponsible of a board member who has access to all these meetings to come to us and accuse us of stalling a process or playing games. That couldn't be farther from the truth, right? We were trying to be fiscally responsible in the fact that we didn't have funding. So we had a process in place. We were following all the steps of that process. And they were a late request that we agreed to take, at least receive in, but couldn't do anything with it. So when the funds didn't become available till I think our mid-October is when we knew about it, then we weren't not taking it seriously. I think that the library board needs to take a hard look at the work they've done and why they're so desperate for this act. I mean, for us to act at this point, because there've been some neglect on the building at that point, but we're trying to make sure that we follow this process very carefully. And then she asks, and I wish some of them were still here and hope that Debbie, maybe they are. She's asking us about the building being inspected. I'm not sure if there's an expectation that our building official is annually inspecting that building. That would not be the process. So it's up to the library board, right? So those who are managing that facility to be maintaining and caring for that. The building official doesn't do an annual inspection of the building.
Of any building,
Right.
of any municipal building.
Yeah.
Right, so that's, again, if they're waiting for the building official, I'm not sure what that ask of him is, and I'd be curious at what it is that they're waiting for him to act on before they could get answers to us.
She referred to 2 engineers. Do we know who those were? who they were?
Um,
Was Carl?
Ralph Toulis has been participating
yeah,
up
Ralph,
there.
Ralph Tools is definitely one of them.
Is he an employee of the town?
No,
Just a friend who walked through?
No,
A
Um,
resident.
we had with the crumbling foundation situation, we had, the selectmen had, put a process together to have all of the buildings that were built after a certain period to be inspected, to make sure that, I believe, that, to make sure that the foundations were not affected by the pyrite.
Okay,
So the library was one of them, and Ralph was hired for that. He's a structural engineer.
okay. Thank you.
yeah, and that's where some of these other issues came to light for ARPA 39, the building envelope stuff.
So some of the discussion there over there with the CIP is in the front of the building, there's a gutter that collects a lot of water from the water roof area. And there's 2 or 3 downspouts, and they said the gutters are overflowing. And first question, of course, we asked was, well, are the gutters clean? And more specifically, did you run a camera and or snake down the different downspout systems to see if those are blocked anywhere? And I don't think that's been done. They've had an engineer look at it, going, there's so many square feet, so much water per minute is gonna come down. But in terms of actually seeing if the pipes are clogged with leaves or anything, I don't think that's been done yet. And that's the more practical aspect of, you need to replace the entire system or get somebody in there with a camera and a jetter to clean it up, which would affect overall with the repairs on the front of the building.
Familiar with that one. Who was the lady that spoke on Zoom last week? The same lady that?
No.
No, that's Debbie. She's
They're
on
different
Zoom right
people?
now.
Okay.
I think that's Debbie.
That's Debbie,
Thank you.
Debbie, our hope. But so the minutes reflect what my memory had, so that's a good thing. That we didn't take action on 39 or 40 because we had several questions, so neither of them look like they have been voted to move to public hearing yet. So because we have questions, and I know I've had questions about, the $8,000 that they're asking about spending on for bollards, and making sure that what the recommendation from the committee is, from the board is, or the library directors, is appropriate engineering wise around that parking lot. So some of their suggestion, I know Troy had concerns about their placement of things, and we can't, you kind of just can't take these bollards and put them in the parking lot where we think they'll best be served, because then if there's damage to vehicles as a result of that, there's some liability to the library and ultimately the town. So from my perspective, it's not about anyone not wanting these things to be done. We absolutely need to take care of the library. But there's been a lack of maintenance. They've shared that with us, and they haven't done some of these things in 16 years. And now there's an immediate need to have them done, and we want to make sure what they're doing is the best use of the funds and best meeting the needs. I also have a question about and I know I brought it up when we went in on our walkthrough. One of the items on ARPA 39 was the funds for second egress out of that back room.
Mhm.
Karen Ann's concern was that it was an OSHA violation. I mean, it's estimated to be a almost $5,500 access. Is that something that's needed? Is that a new change? Are there other things that need to be done? I think we all saw the need for some of the stuff around the retaining wall, but I had concern that, again, in 16 years, none of these things have gone to CIP either. So we can't ignore that the rest of us, we're had to justify why we have or haven't taken some of these things. And the point was brought up about the River Road. That drainage problem came to light. We knew there'd been a slight issue. The real problem came to light in the massive rains we had last year. And it kind of, pardon the pun, made things bubble to the surface. That Carl believed what might happen, and we saw it, and now we know there's an issue, and so we're working to repair it at the same time. So it's not as though there weren't discussions about making improvements on the track. That's been in plans and in discussions for a while. But the extent of the damage came to light as a result of severe weather.
Well, can we take these one at a time and just talk about ARPA 39? Just, and see, because I think that one was, and Debbie's on. Debbie, is ARPA 30, we can't hear you.
I haven't said that.
Okay. Is ARPA 39 the building envelope, right?
It is. That's one of the things on it.
And that one is pretty, I think that, to me, that one was pretty straightforward.
So it's an HVAC unit, sensor, alarm, repair, and replace rotten trim, sweep, an astrogal, with piece between two double doors, replace damaged retaining wall, fill caulk, and that was $11,000. One was $1,000, one was $2,000. Installation of an emergency egress for $5,400, and installation of bollards around the exterior light poles for $8,100.
Now, I know this was all discussed way back when, and I'm going to say that one because you do have, and it has been written on all the different agendas or minutes as far as with ARPA 39, that it's waiting to go to public hearing. If anyone wants to ask or address any of these things now, you know, it would be nice just to get this stuff all finally said and done and finalized between the both of us so we can move forward in whatever way that looks like. So is there, I know you mentioned last meeting, you didn't want to have anything to do with, you wouldn't pay, the money couldn't be used for maintenance. So I did make adjustments on the ARPA 40, but you guys had looked at the ARPA 39. Are all these things okay to go for the town for it to go to a town hearing, or are there still questions or concerns that, you know, we can answer?
I mean, I think I just mentioned some. So,
You can go-
he's not here, but I know he had concerns. We may have discussed it, Deb, but we as a committee didn't move it to public hearing yet. So that's what we have to do is
What it says.
information to make sure that we can make a decision to move forward. I think we're doing our homework. which the
Then why
public
does it
expects
say
us.
go to public hearing? Why would that ever have come up? And it keeps coming up. So what, so that.
That's true, Debbie, but the end result is we haven't actually voted on it yet. So now we're gathering information and making sure we have all our questions answered because the public is going to be asking those same
Oh, I
things.
know, but I'm saying when usually you write down waiting to go to public hearing, that means that you as a committee did say that it could go to the public hearing once it was.
So this one was unusual, Debbie, because it was on the day that we had the other public hearing, but also because we didn't have the funding available, so we couldn't vote for it to go to a public hearing because we didn't have the funds. So it just sort of has been in this, it's the only one like this that is in this sort of gray area of where we were literally waiting for when the next public hearing would be, but we hadn't actually approved it to go to the town meeting. And
That's what I was, okay.
yeah, but
I thought meant that when you said it was waiting to go to the public.
nobody had made a motion to move it because we didn't have the funding at the time. So, and I don't know if we had the funding at the time, if we would have, because I think Erica's right, we had some questions about things. But that said, we have gone to public hearing, knowing, having some questions about things, but hoping that the things would be resolved by the time we got to the public hearing, which is usually 2 or 3 weeks later. So,
Communication is always a wonderful thing. You seem to always be backing it
I
though.
think the public is going to be asking these same questions, right? So I, as a member of this committee, can't ignore the fact that the library board and the directors have come to us and shared a lack of commitment to maintain some of these things. We can't keep that from the public. So we're trying to have as many answers as we can. So when the public asks these same questions, that they've been addressed and you can answer to them. So it's, you know, it's us doing our due diligence.
All right, and in that, and I can appreciate that, and thank you guys, and so aren't we. And that's why I've asked for different people for help. And unfortunately, not always receiving it. So do you want to start from item 1 on number 39 and go from there? Because none of these have to do with maintenance as far as how I can see. So you would need to explain where you think this isn't a maintenance issue. And I have to kind of, you know, ironically, I have been keeping up and seeing things with ARPA, what's been going through. And a lot of them, you know, if you're kind of iffy about whether these are maintenance or not, I've seen things go through, I would consider part of maintenance. There's not that much of a difference, but you know, that being said, we need to move forward. So do you want to just go through each item on number 39 and start that way and then go to 40 so that we can, you know, make some decisions here so we know where we stand?
I think that's a good idea. So basically, I'm just looking, I'm reading what it is. I don't know if you all.
Item 39, the first item is the HVAC unit on the roof has had a sensor for the alarm fail. That's maintenance, right? I mean, when something with our units goes wrong, we repair them.
Something failing doesn't mean that it's a maintenance. It means that it could be that for a number of reasons. That's not because it wasn't taken care of.
I didn't say it wasn't taken care of. I'm saying that that's a maintenance item that, you know, you got this quote. $2,000, but I don't see the date on it, but you know, what is the result of this not being serviced? This was back from June. The Lennox unit found to be in alarm for sensor failure. Also, one Lennox split in the basement is failed on DL2 slow flash, indicating a blocked flue or exhaust, a blocked condensate, or a plugged heat exchanger.
That has nothing to do with us keeping, we wouldn't know anything, even with regular maintenance. That's something that would have been seen, but it's not something that was lack on our part that we didn't take care of.
But so Deb, if this were to happen at the school or at the fire department or the town office building or at the senior center, that would be covered by the maintenance budget. That's like, it's not an annual maintenance thing, but it's an unexpected repair / you know, you need to do it to keep it running thing. And so I think that's what we're saying.
Yeah, I mean, because the quote you have basically says it believes it's indicating because of something blocked. I'll give you an example, Deb. We are having an issue with the heat on one side of the building here in this building. I can't wait, get a quote and bring it to ARPA and then hope that 6 months down the road, they give me funding. Meanwhile, the town clerk side of the building doesn't have any heat. It's a part of maintaining the building and making sure it's adequate. So this one seems, and it is a small amount, I'll give you that. But it doesn't, this seems like something that back in June probably should have been repaired. And addressed or at least looked into that. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about maintenance of some of these items.
We have been able to pull it off and so that we could actually try to get some funding as far as that goes. All right, so then, all right, you guys want to take that off, then, okay, we'll say not approved.
Well, I'm sure this has been asked before, but does the library have a maintenance line item? Do you guys have like, okay, so do you know how much it is? Like you guys?
Not off the top of my head, but there's money there.
Yeah, so that's, and then if something were to happen, you would just call and use that line to cover, you know, service calls or whatever. Okay, I was just wondering.
No, yes, we do. As I'm sure all the buildings do. We have one also. So if that's something that you're saying would fall under maintenance, okay, I can suck that up and okay, so you're not going to approve that one.
I don't think we said we haven't approved it, Debbie. I'm trying, from my perspective, I'm trying to help you understand how you need to be looking to maintain the building. And if you're not sure how to work the exhaust. This money's going to run out. And when it's not here and something else happens, what is the library going to do?
We understand that, and we're not stupid. We know we're trying to get things to be where they should be because for reasons they haven't been. Once we get to that point, most definitely we're going to be maintaining as it should have always been. We're not saying we didn't know not to. We are finding out that these things never got taken care of. So we're trying to correct them and correct them so that when moving forward, we are going to keep up with them. This isn't going to be an issue. We're not going to be asking for the same money over again for the same issue problems. They will have been resolved. So that's we know what we're doing in that respect. So I don't know how to put your mind at ease, but we do know what we're doing and we will be doing it.
I mean, the quote you gave us was a not to exceed for 12 hours. Okay, that's fine. I feel like I'm exhausted. I'm not sure what else to say.
So the retaining wall for $11,000, that to me is a big enough project where, and it's more than maintenance, I think. And it's a standalone project. That makes
Because for one thing, it's age, it's the elements, not to mention, okay, I'll give you a good example. Forever and Always, and it just happened maybe a week or two ago, the Beckers do blasting. And it was in years past from the very beginning, because they would notify us and give us a call. And it was like, I think it was every week, it might have been on a Friday at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, right on the dot, they would have an explosion because that's what they do as far as blasting to do their rocks and whatever. We just had one last week and the building does shake. I mean, one of the girls was so surprised, she nearly fell out of her chair. We have evidence that the building does move and shake because, well, we always have had, but we have a ceiling, drop ceiling in the reading room where it actually moved the tiles away. So now there's an opening. These cracks and things that were noticed in the envelope are things that wear and tear. I wouldn't be surprised if it is because of such things as the environment and blasting. I know it's because of the breakdown with the elements with the rain and having mildew and the moss and whatever grow. They really can't be helped. But the problem is that if it is not taken care of and we correct it, that then we will have a problem with water getting into the foundation where the cement is. And then we will have issues with possible crumbling foundation. So we're trying to, Mr. McCooch said it really well when he did the CIP walkthrough, as far as taking care of things now, so it's not worse later on and more money to be spent later on. We're doing our due diligence in what we have been told, what's been shared with us. So as far as the envelope, that definitely is not a maintenance issue. It does have to get fixed. And even maintaining it, there's no way to maintain it afterwards. It is what it is. It's the outside of the building. It's still going to rain. It's still going to have shade. It's still going to have blasting from. I mean, there's no way around it to, once it's fixed, it not happening again. There's no maintaining it, but it does need to get taken care of. Am I making myself clear?
And Debbie, I think we all agree all of these things are important and need to happen. It's just which pot of money does it come from? Does it come from this ARPA funds, which we really can't use for maintenance things? Or does it come from your operating budget, or does it come from a special transfer from the Board of Finance, from some other pot of money? Which that happens with other groups. They come mid-year and say, we have this one big project, we have to do it, it's emergency. And then they define what the project is, and usually it's funded because it's an emergency. So we're not saying that these things don't need to happen. It's not that.
I just hear things about and we'll talk about the egress next. We talk about things like, air conditioning for the senior center or the hall school band room. And that's all for comfort. Here we're talking about, like when I think about the egress, which we can talk about, we're talking about safety. For example, can we talk about the egress for a moment now that on that? you're talking about the times that are lived today, whether it met codes back 16 years ago, it did. But times have changed where what would happen if, say, guns come blazing in through the front door? You're not going out through the front door entryway or exit way. We have two side doors that have, in the children's room, there is an exit. And also you have to go down the stairs to the hallway to get out to the second side entrance. If something comes to the front of our building, anybody or anything behind the circulation desk has nowheres to go. You can get away perhaps and go to the back of the building where we are. Now you're trapped with no way out. So do you wait for something like that to happen? Now we have funds available where we could do this and it wouldn't cost the taxpayers money. You don't have to put it off. I mean, it's things like that that we thought about. What is the same thing with the burn? Thank God there hasn't been an issue with that. Do we wait for that to happen, or are you going to be proactive and take care of it so it doesn't happen, or feel bad about if it does, having, say, insurance issues, liabilities and whatever, after the fact? When the ARPA money came up, we looked at things that needed to get done for different reasons. So when you're going through this now, as far as, okay, I get and I think about maintenance. Okay, 2 weeks ago when we had this discussion, right before us, the Board of Ed wants $90,000 to surface outdoor equipment and whatever playground for Center School. I didn't want that much for everything at the library. And we're talking, we would cover 10 projects for less than what that would cost. Where is that not, or why isn't that considered maintenance? Like you're going to surface something, it's fine the way it is, like why does it, so, I hear what you guys are all saying, but I don't know why it works well for everybody else. But when it comes to the library, we get questioned, every which way, no slack given, and others, they're not questioned, or it's just taken and they're approved. And it's like trying to make sense of all of this is all we're trying to do. So
Erica wants to respond.
So Deb, we take each project individually, we look at it. We're not comparing the school versus the fire department versus the library. And when a project comes in, it's justified by the person who submitted the project. And so if we move something forward a little bit faster than yours, it's because the justification that came in and the work behind it gave us what we needed to move it forward.
I understand, and that's not what I'm talking.
So it's not because we think it's more important. It's not that it's safety. It's not because we're choosing. We're not giving it a stamp of approval that we're going to approve it. We feel we've got the information we need to take it to a public hearing, to come back to make a decision on our own. Our moving to public hearing is not necessarily an approval of this committee. With yours, there were a couple of things from my perspective, I will only speak for myself, that there are a multitude of items that didn't have enough answers for us behind them, have never gone to CIP, and then came with explanation over regular lack of maintaining. In this particular item, it's been said that only been in the last year that the building has been evaluated for needs as it turns 15, and it has lacked maintenance for many of these items. So that brings us to question to make sure what you're doing is what's needed, that we have all the answers we need to move it forward to a public hearing, and that quite frankly, you're going to be you're under a little bit of scrutiny here to make sure that if we give you these funds and the public gives their support for these funds, that we're not going to be back here in 16 years fixing something that hasn't gotten fixed for the last 16 years. So the lack of things done, and I'm not saying by you, it's the when I say you, I mean the library. You're under a little bit more scrutiny because there haven't been things done. And it has nothing to do with the school. And I will tell you right now, the AC in the Bandram Hall School was not a comfort measure. It was about a safety measure. And if you looked at the documents that were provided to us, you could climb in without any real effort into a window into that school, and that's why that was done, so that they could lock down that particular area of the school. So again, those justifications came to us, and we felt we had the answers we needed to move forward. So I think all of that picture together is why we're asking a few more questions, making sure that you understand what needs to be done based on what hasn't been done.
Well, ask away. Let's see what we can get accomplished.
Christina?
Mhm.
Regarding that secondary means of egress from the back area behind the desk, what OSHA code, fire code, or building code is being cited that that's an illegal setup right now?
It's not illegal. What I'm saying is it was approved, it passed whatever codes there were 16 years ago. Also, times have changed, situations have changed where there's hardly a place safe anyways anymore. If something were to happen, there isn't any way for people to escape. We are 3 stories up in the back of this building. If we were to even gather patrons, the public, to safety, to behind here, to take care of whatever might be going on in the front of the building, we're trapped. We have no way of
I would argue that that applies to almost every building in town. Sitting in this room here, I don't have an exit behind me. Gunman walks through the door right there. I have nowhere to go either. And it applies to every building, probably many parts of every building in town.
and you're 3 stories up.
Two, yeah.
Okay, what other question? And we're not going to win anything here, I don't think, but let's give it a try.
Deb, this isn't about winning or losing. We have a job to do. And if we can't get the information we need, I'm not sure how townspeople can have faith in us bringing something forward to them that we're not willing to ask the hard questions on. Listen, I get questioned all the time. This isn't anything new to me, and I have to have the answers to every dollar I ask for in a multi-million-dollar budget.
Well, okay, so
How
fine.
it's been many years, so we have to justify the expenses, and you're looking to win something when this, to your own board members' comments, has been with us since July. These should be no-brainer questions for us.
Well, that's because you keep giving me stumbling blocks I have to get across, and then I'll go and do it, and then that's not going to be there. I did that with the last number 40 application, and did what you told me to do, and then when I went back with the prices and that we were going to do it, then you said, oh, well, that's maintenance, we're not going to cover that. So I'm trying truly to get the story straight so we can move forward on this. Okay, maintenance, so great. HVAC on the roof. Now we're talking about safety measures, and that's not going to fly either. So what else do we have?
As for discussion of the
I'm
board,
just trying to say-
with all due respect to Deb, that I think it's time our board has some conversation. And whether or not we feel, is it just me, do we feel we need more information before we move to public hearing? But when the public asks these questions,
Right.
and it's not as though they're going to be weeks for the library, either the directors or the board to come back with to give answers to, and then we need to be prepared to hear what they say.
Yeah, well,
Decide what it is that we need as a committee, because I'm feeling frustrated with the lack of understanding why the questions we're asking are being asked.
Did we set a date for the next
Not yet.
hearing?
Not your, that's on the agenda today.
And and this wouldn't apply necessarily to this project, I'm thinking across the board. If we go to public hearing, following public hearing, this commission says, that could information come in after the hearing?
We've done it before where we've had the hearing and then we held, we have a couple of items that we just haven't voted on yet.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes into that other gray area.
Because, like, in looking at this, I don't know the retaining wall well enough to know the size and design, but certain retaining walls, dependent on their size, are subject to the building code. So if this retaining wall is subject to the building code, then repairs and work would be subject to the building code. If you're talking about emergency egress, to Stu's point, it may not be, there's no retroactive requirement that every building continuously made up to every code that exists, but if they're gonna start punching holes in the wall, now that work does have to be compliant. I don't know if the quote provided takes into account fire code and building codes and distances, and I don't know all that stuff. It's not my wheelhouse, but if we're gonna be looking at $5,400 for an emergency egress, and then they go out and determine that it doesn't meet the fire code, it still doesn't meet, it's too far away or whatever it is, what do we do then? So, I was thinking, like, is there a better way to evaluate these? I mean, she's got like 6 different projects here. Do we somehow try to take them separately? And send them sort of almost individually? One of them, the commission feels, is maintenance, so we're going to either reduce the request or advertise it without that. But then I feel like personally for me, the OSHA stuff, this egress, I would need to understand how that and the retaining wall stuff, if the retaining wall would even qualify, what code implications there would be, because if there's code stuff that applies, then you need an architect, you need someone to do the plan review, it needs to be designed correctly. And that's not necessarily something that's evaluated or.
So what I saw on that, the retaining wall, side entrance to the library, there's railings that were, the wall was drilled into, the railings were installed, mortared in, and then probably caulked at one time. The caulking has failed, the water now has a recess to run into, that leftover time will start pushing that out. That's what had to be repaired at Hall School on the ramp. If you notice, we were down there, I think last week, the week before, having to remortar that, reseal it because it was failing.
What's the average height of the wall there?
Well, right there, it's only about a 3-foot wall with a small railing on top, but it's where the public walks.
Because 3 feet is the criteria, I believe, in the building.
Yeah, so from that aspect, on maintenance, as I see it, is you probably remove the railings, if they were loose, remortar them in place, recaulk things so water's not getting down, and if water gets in that block, it's gonna push it out with the ice freeze. The mold is growing on that side primarily due to lack of sun. There's anti-mold agents you can spray on the textured block to take care of that, and there's probably some repointing in the mortar to do. That's what I saw when I was there.
Ralph Tulis is on the call, and I know he knows a lot about this stuff. Ralph, are you able to talk to us? Are you there?
Hold on, I'm here. Hold on. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Okay, good. What would you like me to address?
Well, I know you're one of the engineers who has looked at some of these projects, right? And we were just talking about the wall, the retaining wall.
Okay, I'll give you a brief overview of the reason that I was there and the things that I pay attention to when I do a foundation examination, okay? Primarily, we're dealing with an issue within the concrete that's affected by moisture and oxygen. So one of the things I look very carefully at is the building envelope and how the building sheds water, how the site sheds water. In the course of looking at those things, there were a lot of observations that I made that indicate that there's issues with the materials chosen for the building, as well as issues surrounding maintenance. Quite frankly, I think that north parapet that you all are calling a retaining wall, it was built with a material that isn't exactly very water repellent. It's a very attractive type of concrete block. Unfortunately, it happens to be very porous. And you combine that with the method of installation for the rail, for all of the posts and the railing, and you've got a problem with water intrusion. And that's what's deteriorating that whole end of the building. And it's not structural with respect to the building as much as it is It's structural because the height of that wall goes from, barely ground level at the front to almost, I'd guesstimate 12 feet high as you go towards the west in the westerly direction, and it hooks back towards the building. And at that point, it is about 12 feet tall. So there's a substantial amount of soil and fill behind that wall. What's happening is simply water intrusion, freeze thaw cycles are just causing wear and tear on everything. Better installation would have helped. Sealing that block would have helped. You can look at that any way the commission chooses to. I see it as something that really is more of I'm going to go out on a limb here and call it maintenance. It should have been addressed when the problems were first recognized. The problem is that they weren't recognized until I did a walk around on the building and examined all of the building envelope issues that would allow water intrusion to the foundation. I know.
But Ralph, would you say at this point in time, it's beyond maintenance, it's a repair?
Yes. At this point, the condition it's currently in, I think the railing would have to be removed, the top course of block probably removed and reset, and a lot of repointing of the masonry joints in that wall that surrounds the north entrance. And then go
Would
ahead.
you think that the $11,100 is the right amount to cover that? All that work?
I'm not prepared to address that. I think that is more of a contractor question than I could answer. It really depends on the approach.
Mhm.
Ralph, can you tell us when you did that walk around?
Oh my God. What was that 2018, 2019?
In
I'm not sure.
2018 or 2019, you made the library aware of some of these concerns?
I walked it with the library director at the time and pointed out all these things.
Thank you.
If you want an exact date, I can look it up.
That's sufficient. Thank you. I was expecting you to say like May or June.
Of this year? No.
Thank you.
The same time I did the core exam for the library, the senior center, and the pump station.
That was 2019, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, 2019.
Yep,
Pre-COVID.
yep.
Oh, definitely pre-COVID.
And that goes to some of my concern here, right? So if this conversation isn't enough of a reason for there to be support, if additional funding comes for a facilities director, I don't know what is. That we want to, I just want to make sure, because this clearly isn't in the wheelhouse of our library directors. And so they're doing a lot of work, and I give credit to this current library board, these directors, they are working to find the things that have been neglected, right? They aren't the individuals who neglected, they inherited this. But at this point, it's still their responsibility. But we just need to be sure that the money we allocate is going to be properly spent, and that there aren't other issues. And I'm gonna go on a limb here and say I have concerns for them being able to manage some of these projects, just from lack of knowledge. And again, probably why as a town we should have a facilities director. But that's for another conversation. You know, even if this committee were to provide them with the funds, making sure that the work that they do, that they're not just putting Band-Aids on things, that they're doing a correct, an appropriate repair. And so that the work that they've done isn't for naught at some point.
Can I ask, when you say lack of knowledge, what exactly are you implying? Like, we don't know what we're doing? We ask engineers, we get contractors, we've gotten quotes. When you say that you're worried about such things, what exactly are you saying?
Well, I'm saying that I'm not sure enough of these things you have enough knowledge about for us to be able to, for me to adequately be able to say that they're being properly repaired, right? I want the work that you're doing to be successful, Debbie.
But
right?
my knowledge has nothing, but I don't know. I go to those who do know. and get those people on board to take care of it. I'm not an engineer. I don't know about these things, for example. So of course, I'm going to ask others who do know, and they're going to instruct and give me whatever advice, suggestions that are necessary. The fact that it would start and come from me, I take it.
I didn't say you. I said our library directors and your board as a whole, right? This is a process you're all undertaking, and I don't discount that, but
we're all, any person that sits on any board or whatever in this town or committee, you know, most are volunteer. We do the best that we can do. We all are not knowledgeable on things, but that's not saying we don't have the power and the wits about us to get that information that's needed and bring it to whomever, like, you know, to the ARPA committee.
But I can say, I think there needs to be bollards in place X, Y, and Z in this parking lot here. It doesn't mean that's where they should be. And it doesn't mean I rely on an expert to say that this is what should be done and how it can be done. And like, I'll use that one as an example, because I'm not sure that where you're suggesting maybe place and the cost that comes with that is the proper way to do it. And where
With that as an example, Erica, we are not saying that's where they need to go and how many, we are being told by electricians that this is how it is done and where it should go. We're not coming up with this stuff. We're not pulling this stuff out of the sky. Of course, we do that. And you have quotes that said that about the ballots that were submitted with the first application that we did. It is an electrician, two electricians, electrical companies that said this is the way that it is to be done. So it isn't us saying, oh, we want it here, whatever. They're saying this is the right way to do it. So you're saying something that isn't true. It's not our choice or your choice for that matter. It's been decided because the people know what they're doing that we have asked. And that is one example. But it's true with all of the different things that every item that we have here has been, we've sought out help from the right authorities, and this is what they've given us.
So Deb, do you have the quotes? I'm still thinking about the retaining wall. So the quote, the 11,100 is a number that's from a particular vendor that you got a quote from, or?
When we did the first application, quotes were sent for all that is listed there. It was my understanding that when the second application which is now called the number 40 ARPA, that quotes were sent along with that as well. But yet, what I was hearing from the committee the last couple of times that, you know, we were meeting, that perhaps you didn't get them. I just, Christina, for the number 40 ARPA.
Yeah, I saw that.
But
and I am looking.
It should have been. I know the first one was sent. The second one should have, whether they didn't get attached or I don't know what could possibly have happened. I do.
And I am looking at number 39 right now. I can see it.
Quotes were sent.
So that
when you look through all companies, it's not, we didn't make these things up.
So what this quote says is replace and this is from WJ Mountford Co. Replace damaged retaining wall block, fill and caulk rail post penetrations, route and caulk all wall cap mortar joints. Will be difficult to impossible to match the block. See below materials allowance. And then note brush removal and power washing is not included. And between they break out the materials and the different rates. They're going to need a mason and a laborer to do the work, and it adds up to $11,100. So Ralph, does that sound like what you think? Is that what you were anticipating would need to happen?
Well, it's a step in the right direction. That's not 100% complete, but some of it can be addressed after this work gets done. I really think that they're on point with respect to how to approach it. You remove the rail, replacing the block. Yeah, I think they're very. I think they're correct, and that is going to be difficult to match. This was those were manufactured some 16 years ago. Whether or not they're still made somewhere, I don't know. Even if they are, I don't think they're going to look the same because they're going to be much cleaner than what's there already. So they're going to, any replaced block is going to stand out. And then you wind up with trying to do something that's aesthetically sensible, i.e. Replace the entire top course if it turns out to be a different color or a slightly different shade. At least then it looks like it was intended to be that way. That's one way to accomplish it. By the way, I just pulled up a picture of the gutters at the roof edge. I flew the building with my drone and I did not discover any gutters that really had any issues. I think the water issues with respect to the gutters are like I outlined in the front. And I'm sorry, I'm going on to a different topic. The front gutters, I think, are winter conditions combined with a tremendous roof area that drains to one length of gutter with 2 downspouts. I don't think there's a cleaning issue involved there. I think there's a capacity issue more than anything. And there may not be if there's a clog in the underground plumbing. That may just slow down the water such that it backs up in the underground piping and then it finds its own way into the building. But that's it's going off on a tangent here, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to do that.
You weren't the
That's the next thing we're talking about.
I have a question regarding that quote though, because it said the brush removal and the power washing were not included, but will brush need to be cleared before they get in there? And then how much is that gonna cost?
It said brush removal.
Yeah, it said, yeah, brush removal and power washing not included.
Okay, who you're talking about, the shrubbery that was planted along that wall, I think that's what they're referring to. Which would get in the way of the work for sure.
So Deb, did you guys factor for that?
It's just a tree that's got to come down.
Okay, so what's the plan to get if you guys can do this project, what's the plan to get the tree down? Because
Myself, I can even do it. It's not a big tree. It's just sawing down, taking down the tree. It's not a big tree. I'm sure we could get someone to do that and it wouldn't cost us anything.
okay.
Sounds like they have a plan for that.
Okay, well, I was gonna say, if you had to hire another contractor to do, I don't know how much power washing is involved. But that can be a few $100s. And yeah, I don't want to volunteer public works for the brush removal part. And definitely you probably shouldn't be taking down trees, Deb. That's probably not in your job description, but there's other people you could hire to do that if it's a big thing. If it's just one tree, sometimes one tree is actually a big deal. Depends on the tree and how big it is and where it is and all that.
Well, especially with like power lines and stuff like that.
Yeah, so
We weren't thinking, but as far as needing money to cover that.
Wiring there, you don't want to just go digging into the ground.
Yeah.
These are the things that we're talking about, Deb, right? And so I think again, I'll say, if we had a facilities director, I think they would help you determine what you need, because there's not a lot of overhead power lines there. There's a lot of underground things. So I wouldn't want you just going digging in, not knowing what comes into the building where and what it is, right? There are processes for some of these things. So, just making sure that all of the parts of the project are done so that.
Would that require an 824? Just because of, yes, would that
Yes.
require?
I
I'm
wouldn't
looking at
think so.
him, while you look at me, I'm gonna look at him.
No, it's nothing new. It's nothing, there's no action being taken.
But some of these
You're not
things
changing
would,
the footprint of the building or the capacity or anything like that.
but would a new egress trigger, that wouldn't trigger an 824 even?
Well,
I still have plenty of questions that haven't been answered, but, you know, if this commission feels we could move this forward to hear from the public and see where they stand and see how many more questions, if any, come out of
Yeah.
a public
I
discussion.
think so,
at
and I
that
think
point.
we should break it up. We did this with a couple of things in the past where, you know, we would have ARPA 39A and ARPA 39B. And that way we won't get confused when we're talking about different things. I think because there's so many different projects here that we should do it that
Can I
way.
ask one last question?
Mhm.
There's no guarantee for funding or complete funding from ARPA. Have any of these projects or these two projects gone, have you submitted anything to CIP?
No, again, we're
So what's your plan if there's no funding from ARPA?
this is, no, none of these on number 39 is did we plan on putting on CIP? One, there's very few of them that are over $10,000 would be just the retaining wall, for example, so they wouldn't even go on CIP. At least that's what I was told.
If there's no plan for CIP, Deb,
No, I
and
said it's-
I'm just asking, and if funding doesn't come through in full for some of these things from ARPA, what is the plan from the library's perspective on how to move forward?
Well, we met on Wednesday and we have drawing up a CIP application. There are many things on it. None of these are on it only because, as I said, we were hoping for ARPA money and not having to come out of taxpayers' money. As far as if any of these don't go through, then we'll have to find money for it. I don't know if it'll come from our fund balance or whatever, but we wanted to start with the ARPA grant first. But we do have.
Might I suggest you, at least on ARPA 40, you have a $21,000 project and a $51,000 project. I would suggest that you submit those to, your board consider submitting those to CIP. If they're funded through ARPA, then the PI committee
Yeah, and
made aware.
And depending on the timing of things, like what happened last year is CIP was actually able to make a recommendation to the ARPA commission to fund some projects because they saw a need for it and they thought it would be good. So, and I think that would happen in this case as well, but it just helps to define the project basically and its priority, but
It also shows a commitment to the project that
Right.
regardless of the funding, it's a necessary project that you're seeking funding for. And none of these are guaranteed. So I know, I mean, you can tell between last year and this year, there will be an overlap of some projects that someone hopefully will be able to fund, if not, you know, out of a budget or try to find other grants. So, thank you.
And for items, those sub-items that don't qualify for CIP in terms of being over the perceived $10,000 limit, that could go in your budget request. That if you had a $1,700 repair to an AC or whatever, put that in your budget.
Oh, we will, not that we'll get it, but we would, that's our plan again, moving forward. Different things we're looking at. Yes, the money has to come from somewhere again, trying to save the taxpayer money. Yeah, no, we'll put in, we definitely when we're needed, we'll be putting on the budget, not that we'll be getting it approved, but yeah, we'll certainly give it a shot.
well,
Where do you, so again, so are there things that you aren't going to approve between the 39 and 40 that you could tell us, or?
oh, okay, I'm gonna make a motion to move what we'll call ARPA 39A, which is the retaining wall project, in the amount of $11,500 to public hearing.
One second.
Okay, Erica seconded. And the reason why I made it 11,500 is because it looks like there's some other costs that could come up. And But I think that's a project that should go to public hearing. And but if the funding does go through, you do have to get a couple more quotes, just to be in compliance with the town procurement process and all that, but 11,500 seems like a good amount for that. Does anybody have any discussion about that? Any more discussion? Questions? All right, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, so that one's going to public hearing, Deb.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else?
Does anybody have an ARPA B they want to suggest?
Any chance the bollards can go? Otherwise, I'm going to end up going with rocks. Any possibility for that? The 8,100?
So Erica, the issue with, did Troy have an opinion on those?
He did.
He did,
He does have
from
an
a
opinion.
plowing perspective, right?
Not just a plan, like a larger perspective, but you know, if we want to move it to public hearing, then again, public hearing does not mean that we're sold on the project. but,
Right.
When's the next, when, I mean, when, we haven't decided when the hearing will be, but our next meeting here will be in 2 weeks.
December 5th is our next meeting.
Is it
Okay.
worth trying to get his perspective? I mean. hearing from him?
I won't speak to him until he returns to work next Monday.
I'm saying, are we losing any time if we hold this off 2 weeks to hear from Troy before we make a decision?
Well, we don't have to make a decision at the public hearing either, it's just hearing it.
The idea is to have as much information for the public as possible for them to make a.
Well, I'll make a motion to move what we would call ARPA B in the amount of $8,090 for the galvanized steel bollards in the parking lot at the light poles.
We're calling it 3090.
Yep, 39B. Anybody
What
second
was
it?
the amount?
$8,090. But I'm gonna make an amendment to that because I don't like that number. $8,100. Kind of messed up our spreadsheet.
That's what their original price was, 81.
Yeah, 8,100.
Someone
Yeah.
second.
So,
I'll second that.
You got seconded. Any questions or comments about that one? All right, so all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, so that one's gonna go to public hearing as well. And that leaves a retaining wall in my mind. So I'll make a motion to move what we would call ARPA C for the retaining wall.
No, we did the
No, I already did the
retaining
retaining wall. The other one, what's the other one? The egress one. The emergency egress. Yeah, ARPA in the amount of, what is that one? 5,400. Any second on that one?
I'll second.
Okay,
I
Mike
don't have
seconded.
a knowledge of the building like Stu does, and the rest of you did. Two, excuse me. But as a facility manager, I know that we live and die by what the fire marshal, what the original architecture of the building demanded, what the codes were at that time, and what the fire annual walkthrough from the fire marshal asked us to do.
Mhm.
And I've heard nothing from a regulatory perspective that we need another exit. And I do know that if you deem it, you can deem it a couple things. You could deem it a door, or you could deem it a formal exit. And I'm singing to the choir when I talk about this, but I know that when you deem it a formal exit, it has to go somewhere. So I don't know if this goes out to a patio.
Oh, it's an internal door.
On the
It's an
third floor.
internal door.
Yeah, it leads from like a back office into,
Is it gonna be-
To the front of the building.
to the front of the building, yeah, or
This is
the
not an exit.
stack area, I think.
So I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah, so it's an internal,
So it's gonna go from that room out to the,
I think
Behind
to
the
the
desk.
stacks area. Is that right, Deb? To the stacks?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So our main concern is the shooter coming in, is that what this is
Right,
about?
but this additional door puts you out within 15 feet of where the other entrance is to this back area.
Thanks for the explanation. Wasn't aware.
I guess what it boils down to for me is the library board feels that this is important. And so for whatever their reasons are, they think it's important. Whether or not we think or agree with it, I don't know. I guess I don't have an opinion on it, or my only opinion is if they think that that's what they need, and that's something that's, like, if it had been on the CIP plan for a couple of years already, I would say absolutely, because there's a need, or even if it's a want for a reason, so.
Can, I don't know if this would be on them or be through you, can we request that after the meeting, this meeting, the proposed door or whatever is referred to the fire marshal for an actual review?
Mhm.
It's one of those things where it needs to meet certain criteria and it falls short. You don't want to put in a door that falls short. Yes, it's still an additional door, but that's not how the codes work.
Right.
And if there's an issue, whether it be a fire or something else, and there's an issue related to that and it wasn't put in for the code. So I think we need to know as soon as possible if this would be code compliant or whether there would be other issues. And there's things related to exit signs and other things that would have to be done, you know, new emergency exit signs and what they would, I'm sure there's electrical associated with that. So I think I would be more comfortable knowing and being able to present that information during the hearing if we could have it.
With our building inspector as well. Well, I guess
Yeah, I think
they
there's
go hand
overlap.
in hand, but, you know, but that's, with that being said, we don't have that either. None of us do. I mean, if something happens, somebody comes blazing through the front for a year, I can go in the vault. But what good is that gonna do me? I
So
mean,
I think, Robin, some of their concern, and I don't discount they're bringing it up, but some of their justification to us was that according to OSHA rules, normally a workplace must have at least 2 exit routes. And I have no doubt that this met those rules because the workplace is the library as a whole. And they're specifically concerned about the back offices. And I don't discount their need for that, but just want to make sure, again, if we're going to give them funds to the project, that the project be done the right way to meet exactly what it was that they're intending to do. So, you know, by asking the questions, that's my only intent is if we're gonna expend funds and they are still taxpayer dollars, I don't wanna, you know, so they're not direct Wellington taxpayer dollars, but they're still taxpayer dollars, that we're doing it the right way, that they're not gonna come to us 2 years from now and say, yeah, that didn't serve the purpose we want. All we did was able to go into a circle right out to where an active shooter is, because that sounds like it's gonna put you right back to where you started from. If you go in there for hiding of some sort, you want an access out of there. It sounds like this access is gonna take them right back into potential harm's way, whether it be a fire or an intruder into the front of the building. They just put themselves right back in the front of the building.
and Mike's
So-
points were valid.
Yeah.
You know, you hate to approve the money for the door, but then for Dick and Jim to get there, it's our fire marshal and building inspector to be like, you can't put that here.
Right.
Because, yeah, so I agree, Mike.
Should we table this
I
item
think that
until we
one should
get
be tabled.
information from the
Well, we
building
could
inspector and fire marshal?
put it on the agenda, and if they don't have the information yet, then it just gets tabled.
Could we hold over an item from public meeting to another public hearing, from one public hearing to another?
I think so.
So, you know, if we
Okay,
move
yeah, we
it
can.
forward, maybe there's information that will come to us at that public hearing,
Mhm.
if not before. And then that could still be held, and I'm okay with that.
I think seeing a sketch would be helpful to everybody trying to understand what they're trying to do.
Right.
What we had done when talking about doing some kind of egress, we actually had looked into things like a ladder that would go down, a fire escape. Again, doing it this way, it was about the money, thinking that would be something that, you know, could be afforded and yet still, you know, help the problem or situation if one were to arise. If we're gonna do that, you say to get hold of the fire department, building inspector.
It would actually be the
The fire
fire marshal, and I misspoke. Dick actually retired. It would be Trevor Yantic. But I think you could do that through land use.
Yeah, or on the website, his information is on the town website under fire marshal. It's contact, Trevor's contact information.
Okay, thank you.
Did I make the motion?
You did,
Yes, you
and
did.
Mike seconded.
Am I saying it? All right, we just discussed. Any, all in favor? Any more questions? Of moving it to the public hearing? Yes? I'm gonna say yes.
We're voting, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Is there a motion?
yeah.
Yeah.
Christina made a motion,
I made a
Mike
motion
seconded.
before we started talking about it, so. Yeah.
That's how we
For
got. the discussion.
$5,400. ARPA C, ARPA 39C.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Opposed.
2 opposed. 4 yes, 2 no. It passes, so that one will move forward as well. Anything else from ARPA 39 that you all would want to move forward? What the remaining things are the repairs to the alarm system, the alarm sensor for $1,800. And then there's the fixing of the trim. It's like basically some carpenter work for $1,000. And I'm not gonna move those forward because those are maintenance things in my mind. But
Deb, I know we asked you this and you didn't have it there. If you could at some point maybe communicate with Christina. I'm curious what the maintenance, your maintenance budget is for the library.
I don't have it in front of me.
You forward that along to us?
Yeah.
Could you forward that along to the committee?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, so moving on to ARPA 40. So this is the other library submission. This is the one for various capital expenditures. And I will tell you what they all are. Okay, so the gutters for $21,000. Replacement of gutters and downspouts on the front portico, including heat tape. The gutters are currently too small to handle the amount of roof space that funnels into them. The result is the curtain of overflowing water that falls onto the patio. In the winter, melted snow refreezes, creating an ice rink effect at the front door. And and this is what Ralph was speaking to earlier. So the cost for that one is $21,000.
But also, as Ralph had mentioned, one question is the capacity and or blockage of the underground pipes.
Right.
Is the problem the gutter to start with, or is the water backing up because the capacity to discharge it underground is not
Right.
sufficient?
So that's where we were last meeting. Deb had put in a secondary submission to cover the cost of having someone come out and do that work. And then we said, that's a maintenance thing. We can't add that on. And it could turn out that what you find is that we don't need to do this project. So I don't, Deb, have you made any headway on that?
We have, matter of fact, they're coming out this week to take care of, they're going to clean out the gutters and the downspouts. They are going to take a camera and look to see that there's nothing else going on. So yeah, it was set up, it's being taken care of.
Okay, good. So with that said, maybe we should put this on the agenda, on the public hearing agenda, because there'll be some information about it by the time we get there. Yeah. All right, so I'll move that we send what we would call ARPA 40A for the gutters and downspouts of the library in the amount of $21,000. Any second?
I'll second.
Any discussion about that?
What was the amount?
$21,000.
Yeah, excuse me, Ralph? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear us, Ralph?
I can.
Good.
Well, my name is
Can you
Steve.
hear me?
Thank you. I don't know if you were in attendance a couple weeks ago when the library board mentioned that they hadn't cleaned the gutters as long as they can remember the gutters being there. And you just said you had a drone go up and look at the
Yes.
gutters? That recent, like 2 weeks ago or last week?
No, it wasn't that recent. It was probably a couple of years ago.
Okay, all right.
I think it was in June of 2020 that I flew it with the drone.
All right.
And at that time, there was no debris in the gutters other than a few granules from the roofing, the shingles, which is normal, deterioration of asphalt shingles over time. I didn't see any obstructions in the gutters on the sloped roofs. I did not look at the flat roof in the back.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Okay. But we're only talking about the front anyway here, right, Deb?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Look, it's a hazard, safety hazard,
Mhm.
nice forms.
Any more questions, comments about this one? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, all opposed? Opposed? Abstain? I'm not
You
sure what
have
your
to pick
vote
one,
is.
You have to pick one.
Would you-
Yes, no,
Yeah,
or
you
abstain,
have to
those are your
pick-
choices.
I'll approve it pending
Right,
opinions that'll come down the pipe.
right.
I'll assume that everybody's done their job and redeemed gutters.
Well, when we're at the public hearing, we will
I
have
understand.
that information, yeah.
In which case I'll say aye.
Okay, so that one's moving forward. All right, moving on, the installation of security cameras and lights on the building exterior to improve safety during both the library's open hours, as well as overnight and on weekends. So they actually already have the hardware. They're just looking for $2,000 to pay for the technicians to install them. And
That wouldn't be maintenance. You want it?
I think it is.
I think it falls under maintenance. but-
And I say, with all due respect, I say that because I put that in the budget for this building. It was maintenance on this building and, replacing some of the equipment and upgrading a little bit of what was here that, I can see where, they feel like they need to improve upon it and may not have the funding yet, but I'm not sure that. So I think of it as maintenance, regular maintenance.
Mhm. So does anyone want to make a motion on that one? It would be called 40B if we did it. A motion? Yeah, I think we pass on that one.
Comment, just for record, as far as that's concerned, it's not as if we're maintaining what we have, we're actually adding and putting on what is needed. But, I mean, the 2,000, and, we'll find the money for that. I just wanted to share my opinion that I don't think that's maintaining it because we're not taking care of something that's already there. We're actually adding items to take care of an issue. Again, safety as well.
Deb, can you tell me how much you purchased the equipment for?
Off the top of my head, no. I'm sorry. I don't want to be wrong in what I would say. I can certainly let you know that.
You don't have an estimate of what it was? I mean, was it more than $2,000?
We're talking springtime. I don't remember. Like I said, I want to give you a wrong answer. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Maybe,
it is a good question because like what funds did you purchase? Was that, what did you purchase it from? Like out of your line, out of your budget? Like it's basically, it was a project that you started but haven't finished yet. That's how I see it.
right, correct. That would-
I know during budget season, I didn't hear you asking for additional dollars for either the project or the expense. So I'm curious.
No, we have some cameras, but we wanted to add to the security. For example, there's the one outside, faces the entrance to the building. the police suggested that we have one facing the driveway. So we were gonna put a double one up there. The new one, for example, has a light on it, which is gonna take care of the purpose of lighting up not only the entryway, but also the area where the pavilion is. So, so they are in addition to what we have.
And if you don't want to call it maintenance, I call it building operations.
Yeah.
It's kind of the cost of
Yeah.
running the building, and
Yeah.
you can afford the cameras.
Because I mean, we certainly upgraded and added to the cameras that were here and granted, this money was not available when we did that. But, you know, had to maintain it out of our operating budget, and the transfer station did the same. And so I guess I have a little concern that the project was done half, right? So you purchased the equipment with no plan for funding on how to install them.
We were
You've had cameras sitting around since
springtime.
spring with no plan in place on how to install them.
Oh, no, we would have just paid for them. I mean, even now, I'm waiting for, to hear back from the electrician who's supposed to be doing it for information, but, it would have just come out of our,
What kind of information? I'm curious, because you've asked us to give it to you. Is there additional information you're getting from them? That might help us change our mind?
no, nothing that's pertaining to this. It was just one of the things that, in addition to, I guess I was trying to implement in saying that, always waiting on people, so that we can move forward with anything. So, you can disregard that. It has nothing to do with actually what we're talking about. It's just trying to get people to do their work for us.
Okay.
Takes time,
Yep.
Mhm.
spring. or-
The next item is the berm at the western end of the south parking lot. And I know we've had a lot of discussion about this one, just in the, you know, do you, not do you need it or not? Or do you want it or not? It's, can you have this? And I don't know, did you find out from land use if, from the original plans and,
No, I did ask, matter of fact, Mike can answer that one. I talked to Chris well over a month ago as far as that information. I did call back a couple weeks after that, before the ARPA meeting, but I have not gotten information as far as any coding, what was in the past at the 16-year when we began, or how that would be for today. So, no.
What issue are you still looking for? Because I thought you had asked for the documents and they had provided them to you.
For one, I was wondering why it was never done and should it have been done? So I was looking for coding
Any of
at
that.
16 years ago. And then if we were to do it now, is there anything specific that we have to meet in coding moving forward and doing it at this time, since it wasn't done back then? And I have not heard yet from.
oh, it was on the original plan?
I don't know.
Last I understood when they had spoke to Chris and he let them know that the plans that we have online are all the plans that we have. There's nothing in the zoning regs that would require them to install a berm because of the specific design of a property or anything related to slope. I don't know if there's any requirements for that or not, but again, just like everything else, even if there was a code, in fact, it's not done, it's not there now, right? So, I don't know, we wouldn't be bringing it into retroactive compliance from something that was, over a decade old. So.
Is this based on a water issue going somewhere?
It's
or not
it's,
going
I mean,
somewhere?
from reading the application, it seems like it's just a proactive decision based upon a concern that someone could slip related to, as they say, an ice skid or brake failure and end up in the ravine.
Right.
It is
The
a-
information they brought to us was that they had been given a legal opinion that said it had to, and then it turns out that the
And I
abutting
retried
property owner had told them that we should have one.
Is the property that if somebody fell in the ravine, they abutters?
It's a very steep drop.
They
Right.
fall into our property is what Robin's saying. If they fell into that ravine, would they be on our property or you're abutting your neighbor's property?
It's steep enough. I would imagine it'd still be on ours. I'd have to figure out where the boundary is. But yeah, it's steep. It's not as, an angle or whatever. It's very steep. And when originally talking about this is, if you were to ever see, for example, like the berm that is over at the transfer station, that's like a rolling hill compared to our drop. As far as it, and they have a protection of a curb. We don't have anything as far as it's straight and then a drop. Just
So,
something
Okay,
to-
so to summarize, it wasn't on the original plan.
Well, that's what I wanted to find out, if it was, and what the codes or whatever the regulations were, why it wasn't done.
You got the plans, right?
I didn't get anything.
Well, that's not true. Chris provided you access to the plans. They're all online.
I had called and asked for help from Mike's office, and Chris was going to get back to me. No, I didn't find anything online. I have a very hard time finding things around the website, but that's why I was asking for help.
think I have-
Ralph has his hand raised. Maybe he has some information. Ralph,
I could certainly share my insight here. I think what we're looking for is the west end of the unpaved parking area has no guardrail. Whether it has a curb or a berm or whatever you care to call it, I think might be a concern of inland wetlands, because they tend to advocate for sheet flow off a parking lot as opposed to concentrated flow that would result if you were to install a berm or a curb. Given the slope of the parking lot, I don't think that's a significant enough obstruction to prevent the car from going down into the swamp below. It is still 100% on the library property. I was just looking at the if I can share my screen, I can show you an aerial view of that if it's of any interest to anyone.
okay.
So however y'all want to look at it, but I quite frankly, I just think it's a safety feature that could have been there from the beginning. I don't know that it would have been code mandated. I don't know that it would have been zoning mandated. I think what you have probably would have been advocated for by inland wetlands. And I think Mike could probably speak to that with respect to sheet flow off the parking lot, which is probably getting more detailed than this conversation needs to be.
Well, but you're saying what we have now, meaning nothing there, is probably what inland wetlands would want?
I think that's what they would prefer, because you're not concentrating stormwater flow in any one particular area.
And there's-
in
That's
looking
why I
at
like-
what's,
Wouldn't that be like if you were just put rocks there, like what is then at the transfer station entryway there, that wouldn't, I don't see how that would block.
But there's- And I
So
think
in
it's
looking-
important to note that there has been, I'm happy to say, no issues or accidents there.
the as-built, which is online that I just pulled up, I mean, it shows, as we've talked about before, that in a number of places, there's some outlet structures, there's some catch basins, there's detention system cleanouts, manholes, and then an 18-inch pipe, which goes towards a plunge pool, sort of at the bottom there. And so I don't know where this berm would be, and if it would get into the issue, create an issue with the function of how this drainage system was designed. But
And that's some of
Yeah.
why I suggested, like, would just putting in a berm need some engineering to make sure it's what needs to be there and that it's
Just needs.
probably something like.
I feel like we've tried to go about this to the extent possible to have the projects be solutions to problems. And I don't feel personally like I don't have a problem. And yes, we're trying to be proactive, and I totally get that, but I don't know that a berm it would even stop a vehicle. It's not been designed. We don't know where it would be. There's all these other detention issues and potential problems with function. And we've got all these pieces of infrastructure in the ground. So I'm struggling with this one.
Would a guardrail be more cost effective and safer?
Not cost effective. The rocks would be for free for one thing. So there's no, it definitely would be cost effective. It is just putting large sized rocks along the back so that a car could not get between them to go down.
A guardrail would go straight across.
I mean, is there a need for
Well,
landscaping
Well,
rocks
and-
there?
right.
Does Public Works have to get down in there to do clean outs and stuff in the plunge pool or any of that?
I mean, I know that they have maintenance and other things. They have to access the back of the property for mowing and other things. I don't know if we talked about this with Troy, would it get in the way of snow plowing operations, pushing snow?
He did say
He
yes.
did have a concern
He
about
had
that.
concerns about that.
I mean,
Now
you
you're back- now you're backing it up into the parking lot. 'cause there's-
You see everywhere, even state parks, everyone does just rocks too. And certainly Wellington doesn't lack in having rocks. But you see that kind of a protection put everywhere. So the state must say it's okay, or towns must say it's okay. You see it at reservoirs, you see it at state parks, you see it there.
But I think,
In Wellington, that's just decoration. That
I think Deb, it was part of a plan. I don't think it's always for,
but what if we had like a snow of, what was it, 2011, when we had all that snow and we couldn't put, like, then if you put the rocks there and Public Works is plowing, you're gonna see a significant loss of parking lot, I would
not where
assume.
the rocks would go. The rocks would go very much towards the end. You still have a lot of grass in front of it beside it's, I know you're not seeing it, so there, it would be put, you still would have plenty of grass ground before you got to that level where they could still do the entire parking lot, lay the snow down before the rocks, because there is still ground there that they can do that. Even because it's a side parking lot, even if they were not, they were to take up some of the parking lot area where it is paved, would not be a big deal. That's an overflow side parking lot. We use it in the wintertime, well, for our craft fair, which is coming up in just a couple weeks. Outside of that, there's plenty of room there. Snow plowing and having snow put there would not be an issue. And even if it were, again, there's plenty of ground before you would get to the rocks where they would be placed that you could put the snow there. It shouldn't even affect the snow plowing.
So I have a 3:30 appointment. So in the interest of time, I would not want to make any decisions about hearing from Troy. I mean, I think this is important to have his perspective. He's not here. I don't know unless everybody else feels unanimously about this, but I just feel like we need some of that information and need to have an understanding of what the long-term implications will be and if he thinks it's going to work. And I just feel like it would be a good perspective to have.
Well, I did talk to Troy and he's not interested in having it done at all. I can tell you that right now. Because he was concerned about it being harder for them to snow plow.
What was the dollar
Right,
amount?
but Deb, you don't think that's valid input?
No, it won't, for that area, no, it doesn't affect it at all.
It doesn't affect the snow plowing? I
Not
mean,
in
each one
not in
does
the
snow
side
plow.
driveway where the berms would be, no, it wouldn't.
with all due respect,
You have to see it. No,
there's a reason Troy is a public works director and not I. And his input on a topic just such as that is valuable to all of us. And I think we should hear that when he has concerns about it. It's not because he doesn't want to do it or doesn't think it's the right way. If he felt like something should be there, he'd be working with you to find the right solution. I strongly believe that. So I'm with Mike on, let's hear his input on this before we move forward. It's,
Possible to get Troy
no
out. here.
motion, correct?
No.
Okay.
Okay, well, moving on, I'm just wondering if there's anything else that we would like to have Mike's input on. Well, actually, we can, once Mike leaves, we can't vote on anything.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned.
Yeah.
So can I ask while Mike's here, if we could move ahead, we can come back to this, move to item C, the retention bonuses for town employees. So as you all know, I was incredibly opposed to us not making the decision here at this committee and taking this to town meeting. And I expressed that started having a different discussion with how best to allow for some funds to town employees, and the Board of Selectmen were discussing how we could utilize funds in a different way instead of bonuses to individual staff members. And so we did a survey. That survey was followed up with a staff meeting that was held earlier today. And I'm here to certainly ask this committee to reconsider the vote we made to move this to town meeting. The staff, I pulled it away because I was concerned about the discussion of staff and their work being a referendum at a town meeting, right? So not the purpose for the funding. And the staff was in pretty big agreement of two things. One, their incredible disappointment with our committee not taking action on this, that certain members had recused themselves from the conversation, leaving the remaining members to be able to adequately participate and vote in the discussion. And that they already feel that the damage has been done between townspeople and staff here in some of the discussions that were held at the public hearing. And the intent of this funding was simply to put funds back into the hands of people who I believe needed it, and I believe those staff members do. You see the state making funds available for employees, of which ours are not eligible for. There is a variety of eligible employees. It runs the gamut. In essential, there's no doubt ours are essential, but they cannot apply for those funds. State employees have received funds. They are not eligible for those funds originally set up, but the state provided funds to some state employees and throughout ARPA, and this ask was no different. So I'm here once again on behalf of the project that I brought forth. It was only for employees who were with the town, so it wouldn't add any new staff between March of 2020 and when the request was made for this commission to reconsider taking this topic like we have every other discussion of ARPA funds at this committee before going to a town meeting.
So you're putting it back on the table?
I'm asking for us to consider not sending this to town meeting, but taking action as a committee ourselves. And I'm not saying it has to be today. I think there could be some discussion, but you know, the staff is pretty, they're disappointed and they're hurt by the lack of action by this committee and moving it to town meeting. I know I expressed, and Tom did when he was on this committee, that I felt this was the appropriate way. We'd set up a place in which to expend all these funds, and we made a determination based on the fact that there are many members of the committee, but not that the rest of the committee couldn't make an informed decision based on the merits of the project and keep that decision here at the ARPA committee. So there's some pretty hard feelings from many employees and some very long-standing employees with the town. And so I did say that I would bring this up again today and make that request. If this committee feels that we're going to move forward the same direction we have already done, then be recommending this go to a town meeting. But not, like I said, then not thrilled about that. I think there could be more harm than good there.
How do we undo a decision that we already made?
What was the previous decision, that it would go to a town meeting,
Yeah,
not a public hearing?
We did a public
it already
hearing.
did a public hearing. And we ended up with it's gonna go public to a town meeting.
Is there, is it implied as it goes to a town meeting, the town meeting is the decision maker?
We basically are giving our authority to town meeting on just these items.
The town meeting gave us the authority.
Yeah.
To make
Yeah.
a decision.
And we're giving it back to them for specific items, which I know I expressed my concern about us picking and choosing the items we didn't want to touch. And so I'm simply asking us to reconsider enough process for that, and if not, we'll be moving forward.
I'm just not sure how we would do that. I don't really know how would we would just vote on the same question. I don't see how we can change
So it
course.
it left here to go to town meeting and then never went to town meeting.
Correct.
Correct.
It's not, the selectmen have yet to call a town meeting for this specific question. Or two questions, the fire department, additional funds, and the town employees.
In the land use world, we would run it through another, we would advertise it as another hearing. And we would run it through again. Essentially, you know, like there was a decision without prejudice or whatever you wanted to call it, but if there was no decision actually made on the project. And it's not like we decided to say, we decided no, and now we're changing our minds and funding it anyway. So, I mean, my opinion on this is that this whole thing, this should have just been funded by this committee a million years ago. And I'm saying that as someone who's not subject to getting any of these teeny tiny amounts of money. But I think if we have to put it to another hearing, just to be belt and suspenders about it, then I think we should.
And now, have you, the actual statements that were made by multiple employees was that the damage has been done. The lack of respect for them is how they see it. And we can't discount that. And on top of that, since we made this decision to not take action and to give our authority over the town meeting, we've seen other towns, including our neighbors in Mansfield, provide a small bonus to town staff in Mansfield. So they see it being done, and it really, it's a tough pill for them to swallow, and I understand that. I heard all the concerns, Christina, I absolutely did, and we listened to them, and you know, we heard our attorney say that we could still take action. We had members recuse themselves, and so we set up a process for the commission to do the work, and then we kind of balked when you know, when a tough item came before us instead of taking action. So, and I think we all know, right, the town meeting, certainly the conversation is directed based on the moderator, and we never know who that's going to be, as much as we might hope. And that this could really delve into a discussion, not of the question being asked, but of the work of staff, and that is, you know, in my opinion, never the appropriate place for that. But
I could see if it had changed, if the request is different in some way, that it could come back to the commission. But I don't even know what motion you would make to change something that's already been decided.
so the project hasn't been decided.
No, but the motion is on the table of what to do with it at this point. And there's been no change to the request. So there's a change to the request, maybe that could prompt a reconsideration of what the next step would be. But
When was the 3250 what was originally submitted?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I removed myself from that way back. Is
There
that,
would be, there's a dollar figure change, because there's staff that are no longer with us, that were here during that time.
so what if the
And I did-
request was modified in the amount, because now you're not asking for as much? Could change what it's called. I mean, I still think calling it a retention bonus, I don't think that's what it is. I think it's paying them back. for-
Pandemic bonus.
It's here's 10% of the work that you put in, we're paying you back for time you already gave the town. I mean, to me, it's just,
some of
Retroactive
the
OT.
people on the list weren't even here at that time.
they're not getting paid if they weren't here.
if they weren't here in 2020?
It was between 2020 and the employees that were here in the time, during the time, I think it went back to like March of 21. 22.
Of this year?
Two.
22.
So if they're not,
But those folks had, the most recent employees had started in the 21 year. And had been relatively short period of time. They had been with us through 21. And so that was still the timeframe in which, so in some of those, there are employees that are not here. So the dollar amount certainly would not all be expended because there are certain staff that are no longer here
Mhm.
and just don't qualify. And I had been clear that it wasn't going to be for new staff. It was for a point in time.
Mhm.
So is the dollar figure enough to trigger enough of a change in your opinion? For us to reconsider and take this back to a public hearing here or?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed. I mean, we've been waiting to hear what it would change to. I mean, so,
Right, what I didn't do was change that dollar amount, but if they weren't here, it would be another one of those where we would be returning
mhm.
funds. And they would be unused. I could certainly go back through the list. I do have a running list. And I have it here, it's still my office.
And what does I guess to me, I'd want to know that it's gone back through the Board of Selectmen and maybe as a new request.
For a
But
smaller amount.
yeah, I just don't know how do we take this off of this agenda?
if she submits additional information, then I think we could modify the request
Mhm.
based upon whatever was submitted.
Yeah,
So if the Board of Selectmen communicates to this commission, request for reconsideration in an amount of 25,000 or whatever it is, then we would receive that and we could modify it from there. So
Yep.
that the maximum that we would send would be whatever they revised it to.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that the ordinance gives us the authority to make a decision now. Sending it to hearing or doing anything else with it is just sort of trying to increase. I don't know, the public sort of the availability of receiving comments on it.
Yeah.
Because if the ordinance allows us to disregard, the town meeting
So
and do it anyway.
So let me ask you this, we agreed to send it to town meeting and town meeting was gonna decide the question. Are you suggesting then that town meeting be used as another means to solicit input?
No, not town meeting. And is that actually what we decided? Did we decide, did the motion that we made state that it would go to town meeting and then what? It would come
And then-
back here for appropriation, correct?
No, I
Wasn't
think
the Board of Finance involved?
The
Board
Board
of
of Finance gave an opinion, but they don't
Right.
have any direction on the spending of these funds.
But the town meeting doesn't have the authority to allocate ARPA funds. So my recollection, and I could be totally wrong, is that after it went to Board of, we would basically acknowledge what happens at town meeting, but the town meeting can't actually legally appropriate the funds,
no, I think town meeting can appropriate the funds.
including ARPA dollars.
Yeah, I mean, they did before this commission was created, that was the body that appropriated the funds.
Right, but then we created an ordinance that
Yeah.
changed the process.
Yeah,
So I think that's, I'd have to look back in our minutes, Mike, or actually watch that meeting when we decided it, because I do recall we had that conversation that
mhm.
we would then act upon the decision made at town meeting because they can't. We pushed the question to them, but they, the new ordinance, they can't
Yeah,
actually appropriate the funds like they would
That would have
typically.
been in.
So did we make our motion?
I don't remember.
That would have been July. Hold on.
It was
July
after the
11th?
July 11th. It was at that public hearing, but it was not that meeting that we
It
made
would have been
the decision.
July 25th. Did we have one meeting? August 8th?
All right. It was August 29th. The question was. Christina made a motion that ARPA 32 recommends that Board of Selectmen call a town meeting to approve ARPA 32. And then the same thing was done at the fire department request.
But I guess, what did the attorney say when he was at that meeting? Whether or not.
Stuart had asked for clarification about the attorney's letter, and the letter had said that there was some question about budgetary. And that this fell under appropriations that had to go through the Board of Finance, and that was a different statute. And that was for our budget. And so, you know, the discussion from our attorney had been that we had the authority to decide, and we had the authority to essentially give up our authority. And so all I'm asking is that we reconsider and, you know, what that looks like. Is that, you know, a deeper public hearing? And we consider, but I was clear that, you know, there was support from this commission to support it and vote yes for it, but that it needs to go to the town meeting to say yes, simply because of the members of this committee. But and that's
So
I hope we can see how that's frustrating, because the library, who's taken kind of a beating from us, right? Deb won't disagree. We really kind of hit her hard with lots of questions. Might feel like she'd have a better shot at a town meeting. And where's our argument not to send it to town meeting? Because they feel that their question will get a better view at town meeting than here. So when we start muddying the waters over taking action on something.
I don't think we can take any action because when Robin, since she recuses, we only have 5. We can't really vote to do anything with it today anyways, can we? Don't see how we could. My thinking is take a revised request for less money from the Board of Selectmen saying reconsider this per our discussion with staff. And then I think that gets presented at the next public hearing to show that we heard a revised request, we had a public hearing on it, and then the commission can make a decision. There were no official decisions made. To me, that's the path forward, unless the commission just wants to pull the trigger. But I think we'll spend the next 6 months debating whether we should or shouldn't. But sending it to public hearing and saying, this is what happened, this is what the staff thinks, this is what we've discussed to date, hearing from anybody else, seeing what people have to say. And then,
Because the Board of Selectmen have taken a discussion on another way in which to provide something back to our staff, right? And trying to hear from them the direction on that. And we're coming upon a public hearing on funds that, you know, we know requests are going to have to either get denied or get cut. We just don't have enough funds for the table. And these dollars are part of that money that's on the table. And so, you know, my real concern is not only if we, you know, kind of drag this out, but now if the Board of Selectmen don't move quickly, and I always say I want to do it right, not fast. As much as I'd like to move forward faster, I want to make sure we do it right. But we run the risk of this committee expending all the funds and now there being nothing left in the pots and doing further damage, in my opinion. You know, if we were going to say no, then let's say no. If we're going to say yes, then, you know, we're moving that direction. But, you know, we weren't, in my opinion, as a group, brave enough to take the vote. And I believe we lost a member because of it. So.
You asking us to pass this without a town meeting?
No, I'm asking us to reconsider taking the action ourselves. Yes.
I think we both just said the same thing.
Yes, sorry. Once I repeated it back, yes, I'm asking us to reconsider, this committee to reconsider our action.
I'd be more in agreement with Mike at this point of coming back with another proposal of a lesser amount. Which would suggest to me as a townspeople that we heard you. We still feel like there's some very deserving people here. We've made some adjustments. This is what we'd like to do. That's,
Okay, so I'm speaking on behalf of my request. Chief Moore was not able to stick around, and I have not had this discussion because our staff meeting was today at noontime. He put his request to go to a town meeting on hold pending, kind of wanting to stay in the same vein as the original request. I know mine has changed because I know some staff has left. I don't know that to be true of the fire department. So if we're saying it's possible for me to bring you a new request and consider it, how do we know that to be the case with the fire department, and what would be their mechanism if they so choose? I had hoped Chief Moore would be here when we had this discussion. And my other concern is, depending on the timing of these things, town meeting is going to give away funds. Imagine if we had our meeting before theirs and we expend everything and then they expend money and there's not enough of each dollar. That's concerning to me too. So sorry, I threw a lot in there. But I'm not opposed to that, Stuart. It is, I definitely have some changes to my request. Instead of returning them, could put it in the form of a new request. I don't know that that's the case at the fire department. But I would want them to be looked at in the same manner.
I don't necessarily think there is harm in putting both of them as they are back to a hearing and going through, here's where we are, here's how we got here. I mean, you're explaining the process and you're explaining what happened, and during a public hearing can say, this is what was reviewed at a staff meeting, this is reviewed by the board of selectmen, these are the concerns, here's this, here's that. We've reevaluated it and we're requesting that this not go here and instead stay with the committee. It's a public hearing. I mean, how much more transparent can you be? So Christina had made some comments about how would we consider it, nothing has changed. I don't personally think that anything needs to change. If it goes to a hearing and everything is explained and, the breadcrumb trail is clear and how we got here, we're not just, we've tried this, that didn't work, so now we're trying something else. That's not the case because there was no official decision made. Send them to public hearing and have them both explain it exactly as they were.
And I believe this was in the July public hearing, and lots of things have changed since then, right? So lots of state funds became available for the remainder of the state. So to those folks who said, we didn't work and we didn't get any money, I can easily point back to say, you have an opportunity now to have gotten similar funding from the state, and our folks don't have that same ability. They just don't. It's, you go on there, as soon as you say you worked in the public sector, you're done. Process over. And so that ship sailed when they weren't eligible for those funds. So some things have changed in the kinds of funds that have been available across the state to workers since our public hearing. Is that enough to trigger us to at least put it to public hearing to hear from other townspeople on this?
If Robin recuses, would she abstain or would there be?
That's a choice to her.
Because if she's seated, she has to.
One or the other.
She's got to do something, right?
Right.
Because assuming she chooses to abstain, then we have enough to vote. Right.
To vote.
Because we need 6, because that's what the quorum is, right?
Right.
So without her, we can't take any action on any of this.
We need 6 to vote and then 4 to say yes. And if she abstains.
I thought the discussion last time was the number of people that are not abstaining or recusing were the ones that ended up deciding to vote.
Right. Right, and it has to be a majority of them.
The only issue is now because of a quorum.
But there's only a few of us.
Right.
So-
Today
Right,
it's
but
a quorum issue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I can't speak for them. I don't know if she got up for some other reason. other
No,
than
she didn't want to participate in
She
it.
just decided she, okay. That my assumption would be that they would probably still recuse. They, took that seriously and, understood the process before anybody get to even question it about with them. But
So we can't do anything on this anyways.
Not today,
which
But-
means
but what's, I guess, going to a town meeting versus a public hearing, probably do the town meeting faster. But the reason not to do that,
listen, if this group doesn't want to take that, then I'll take it to town meeting. I've spoken with our staff and I'm ready to move forward with that. I have concerns, which they do too, about the conversation
but
at town meeting.
a town meeting and public hearings, the same conversation could happen. I mean,
I think it's different because town meeting is a vote to appropriate the funds in there.
Right.
They're going there to say yes or no to a
Right.
project.
And the difference, in my opinion, Christina, is understanding the process and directing the conversation to the question at hand. So there's a question, right? At public hearing, it's, it can be a little bit different, but recognizing that he or she who controls the conversation can keep folks on task in the question, so it doesn't delve off into a referendum on something else. And, we do a pretty good job in general of that here. And while that may be something you want to talk about, it's not the topic that we're on, so we can't. So, I just, not only is it the conversation can be different, but they're actually going to take a vote there. So if this committee can't or is not going to take action, then I'm going to move it forward to a town meeting. But
All
then
right,
the
well,
question is, what is our action after town meeting? Do we still have action? And does it, everyone gets an individual vote, so it can't just be, our action can't be just a rubber stamp of.
I think we should leave this on the agenda for the next meeting to hopefully have enough people here to do something with it. I would be comfortable making a motion that both of these items get put forward for a public hearing by this commission, 32 and 36, but I can't. And did you recuse from 36 last time?
Yeah, I'll abstain from both of them.
So I think we just need to have more than 4 of us here. But I don't see how there's any downside to having a public hearing on it. And I think it just behooves us to move quickly through the public hearing process if the timing is a concern. But I'm also really late for my 3:30, so I don't want to hamstring anything else from happening until then.
Well, I know we can't take action, right? So we simply just don't have enough members currently. But I can't tell you that by our next meeting, there'll be any action for us to take because the Board of Selectmen will take this topic up again tonight.
well, one thing the Board of Selectmen could do is revise the request and submit the revision to this commission.
Right.
Versus going to a town meeting.
Right,
Those
so,
are the two
right, that's why I'm
options.
saying I don't
Yeah.
know that there will be something, because we'll take it up tonight, and so see what that is, and I'll reiterate the conversation I reiterated to you, and then the conversation that happens here, so.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. But if we're gonna call a public hearing to right now,
We
we
need to,
can't put those things, or any of these other things from the library that we haven't even talked about yet on there.
and as soon as Mike gets up and leaves, we can't take any more action.
But
And
but
he's
do
really late
do we
for a
have
meeting.
do we have a date we can
It's
have a
4
public
o'clock.
hearing in the first place?
So there are a couple dates, they really get us really close to Christmas, again,
Mhm.
because we have 2 items for a town meeting.
Mhm.
So in that time frame, we're looking at the town meeting. And I haven't been able to open it here on my phone, but I have a new revised public presentation schedule for SBC. So there's
Mhm.
lots of things happening in there. And my guess is that it's not ideal, but the last week of December is probably going to be the most available timeframe. Which
So
is,
between Christmas and New Year's?
yeah, which is ideal for no one. I
Yeah.
recognize that, and the 26th, we are closed here.
And, okay,
So we've been sticking to our Mondays.
I'm just thinking if we wait till the next meeting to call the public hearing, first of all, that gets us to
December 5th.
December 5th. So the soonest it could be anyway
Maybe the
is
19th.
in 19. But is the 19th even one of your dates,
It's a selectmen's meeting.
right? So then the other option is the 26th, which
Which
is what
was
you're
we're
saying.
closed, the
And then-
26th and the
And then the
2nd.
next would be the 2nd, and then the next would be the 9th, which is is January 9th is selectmen's? No.
January 9th is not selectmen, but we haven't firmed up our budget calendar. So,
Hmm.
you know, that's if we stick to Mondays. We've been sticking to Mondays. We can
Yeah.
always look at it.
But I mean, it doesn't seem like we're gonna be doing anything between the 5th and the 19th. We're not gonna be holding a hearing prior to that,
Right,
right? It doesn't seem like that's where we are. And there's some questions that we would need to, we want to hear from Troy and others on some of these items. So that gets us to the 5th. So it would seem like if we don't call a hearing today, we're not gonna have a hearing before the 19th anyways, which means waiting till the 5th to decide we don't lose any time.
right.
So I just assume we not make that call, and hopefully by the 5th, we have a better understanding of the questions that are outstanding for some of these things, and we can sort of confidently pick a date. Maybe we just move
Yeah.
from a Monday.
And maybe we tentatively target January 9th as the hearing date, but we don't, we'll call it on December 5th,
Well, I mean, when does CIP and all that stuff start?
December 1st.
So can we put can we put the 9th of January on the calendar so that other boards and commissions don't select a meet? Can we hold that open for ARPA?
Okay.
Write it on the master calendar on the wall?
Kelsey will pencil it in for her. Very full. No, you can't need this day.
Yeah, But if everybody
The
else starts
reality is if we
meeting,
need to have a budget hearing, we'll try to do it a little bit earlier. We typically would do like a 5:30, backing up against the 6:30. So there's still an opportunity for us to have a budget meeting.
Okay, all right, so for everybody who's watching this, who's trying to understand what we're saying. Basically, we have some outstanding things with these other items that have already been on the, that have already been heard, which is, and we've just talked about when the next public hearing would be. It looks like we're targeting January 9th. And between now and January 9th, we have two meetings, but we would need to call that public hearing on the
On the 5th.
5th. So at the next meeting on the 5th, we will be calling the meeting. And that's when we make the motion to put all of these items on that agenda, even though we've already made decisions about some items. There's a couple we haven't. Well, like the next agenda will say updates on previously heard requests, and it'll say like ARPA 39A, moving to public hearing, ARPA 39B, moving to public hearing, and what those are. And then we'll still have a couple things that just haven't been heard yet, haven't been moved on yet. And maybe on the 5th. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you for consideration. I appreciate it.
yeah. All right. Okay, so if Mike leaves, then we don't have quorum and we can't meet anymore anyway. We can't make any more decisions. We can keep talking, but
So can I, in the interest of time, and the fact that this room is going to be used in about 4 minutes, make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Great. Thanks, everybody.